Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to our 13th lesson of our simplified Tajweed series, which is a series of Tajweed lessons introduced by Quran University uniquely designed Quran learning management system with the purpose of introducing Tajweed in a modern and easy approach. Through this series of lessons, you'll be introduced to Tajweed rules using a unique, modern, and innovative approach to teach Tajweed, utilizing the color codes of Mushaf al-Tajweed as a common denominator to link between those lessons and Tajweed rules. With such approach, we aim to make the understanding of Tajweed rules much easier and help you to practically apply those rules while reading the Quran. In the previous introduction about Nun, Sakinah, and Tanween, we mentioned that there are four possible Tajweed rules that would arise from the Nun, Sakinah, or Tanween convergence, meaning meeting with another letter of the alphabet. And those four possible rules were Iqlab, Idgham, Ith'haar, and Ikhfa. And we said that the rule would be based on the letter that follows the Nun, Sakinah, and Tanween, and in the case of Iqlab, that letter would be the Ba, and in case of Idgham, there would be either those letters in green or the letters in gray, and we said if we have the Ya, Nun, Mim, and Waw, it will be an Idgham with Ghunnah, and it is mentioned in the green letters of the word Yarmalun, while in the case of Lam and Ra, it would be Idgham without Ghunnah, which in turn is represented by the gray letters of the same word Yarmalun. Then we talked about Ith'haar, saying that it has 6 letters, and then we talked about Ikhfa, and we said that it would be related to the rest of the letters of the alphabet. This lesson is dedicated for the Ith'haar, exposure, which is indicated when the Nun, Sakinah, or Tanween meets one of these letters, the first letter of the following words, أخي هاك علما حازه غير خاسر. So, let's start Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim with our topic for this lesson, which is Ith'haar for Nun, Sakinah, and Tanween, the name of which in Arabic is Ith'haar al-Nun Sakinah wa Tanween. And in this lesson, we're going to achieve the following objectives. We're going to learn the applied Tajweed definition of Ith'haar. We're going to learn about the letters of Ith'haar for Nun, Sakinah, and Tanween, and take examples on this rule and practice what we learn by attempting to extract cases of Ith'haar from the Quran and apply Tajweed rules on them. In our Quran learning management system, whether we're using the desktop version or the mobile version, in both cases we use the Ottoman script of Medina Mus'haf with Tajweed color codes. And we call these colors قواعد ألوان التجويد, where every Tajweed rule, hukum, is given a unique color code. The objective of these color codes is to alert us to the presence of Tajweed rules while reading the Quran. And if we look at the legend of the colors used in Mushaf al-Tajweed, we'll find that the color related to Ith'haar in Mushaf al-Tajweed is actually the color black. So Ith'haar does not have any special color. The color black is the color used usually for the normal text. An example of that, if we look at Min Amri, Nun followed by Hamza, which is an Ith'haar letter, both the Nun and the Hamza and the Alif are all in black. Another example, Jannatin Aliyah, this Tanween followed by the Harful Ayn letter, and again both the Tanween and the Ayn are in black color. Now let's extract an example of Ith'haar from this page, and as we said, Ith'haar won't have any special color, it will be in black. Shay'an imra. We realize here that there is a Tanween followed by a Hamza, and both are given the color black. So practically there's no special ink color given for the Ith'haar. Ith'haar is not given any special color because Ith'haar is the golden rule. Whenever it is not specified otherwise, it's always Ith'haar. So if there is no other rule indicated, then any letter in Quran should be exposed clearly. It should be pronounced apparently without any changes or alterations. Now, we're going to remind you with the relationship of Tanween and still Nun. So, what's Tanween and what's the relationship of Tanween and Nun Sakinah? As we said, Nun Sakinah is basically one of the letters of the alphabet with a sukun, which is still, meaning having no harakah, no movement. Now, the Tanween, it is an extra Nun Sakinah added to the end of a name, any name, and it's written in the format of duplicate Fatha or duplicate Kasra or duplicate Dhamma. So there are 3 types of Tanween. Tanween with Fath, Tanween with Kasr, Tanween with Dhamm, And the example is as we see here for the word kitab. Kitab is a book. Now a book with Tanween, Fath, kitaban, or kitabun, Tanween Dam, or kitabin, Tanween with Kasr, duplicate Fatha, duplicate Dhamma, duplicate Kasra, and it is pronounced like this: kitaban, kitabun, kitabin. So basically, after the word kitab, there is a nun sakinah with a fatha on the last letter of kitab, and that's Tanween Fath. So nun sakinah is basically a part of Tanween. So Tanween, the word Tanween means adding a nun. Nun, Tanween. So thus we conclude that the Tanween adds a nun sakinah to the end of the word, and accordingly, same rules of Tajweed that applies for the nun sakinah would automatically applies for the Tanween. So an example with Ith'haar for nun sakinah and addu, we'll find that the nun has a sukoon followed by a hamza, which is a letter of Ith'haar. So when we pronounce them clearly and without any alterations. An addu. Now on the Tanween side, shay'an imra, we'll find the Tanween here again in black, and shay'an imra, we pronounce it as if there is a nun sakinah after the hamza. And that's why, as we've said, the rules of nun sakinah and Tanween are the same because both contains a nun sakinah at the end. The definition of exposure, Ith'haar. Linguistically, Ith'haar means to be exposed clearly, to make obvious and clear. In the science of Tajweed, Ith'haar means to expose the letter so that it would be pronounced clearly without any hiding, without ikhfa or ghunnah, meaning nasalization. In simple words, Ith'haar means pronouncing the sound of the letter exactly as we write it. When do we perform Ith'haar? When is Ith'haar indicated? Ith'haar is indicated whenever the nun sakinah or Tanween meets one of these 6 letters, the ones at red here, at the beginning of each of those words. أخي هاك علما حزه غير خاسر همزة ها عين ها غين خاء. In nun sakinah, it can happen within the same word. Minhum, we find the nun with sukoon here and the ha following it, which is this letter. Or it can happen in 2 words, like an addu. We find the nun sakinah here alone followed by the hamza. And in Tanween, it always happens in 2 words. Alimun khabir. Tanween in 1 word followed by kha. The kha in the 2nd word. So what's the rule? What happens if nun sakinah or Tanween meets these letters? If there's still nun sakinah or Tanween meets these letters, it should be exposed, meaning pronounced clearly, which means pronounced clearly from its proper articulation zone, from the oral articulation so clear without any hiding, and from the nasal articulation giving it ghunnah but without an increase or decrease in the ghunnah. Give it the ghunnah, the normal ghunnah for the nun. And those Ith'haar letters have something in common. They are all letters articulating from the throat. They are all throat letters. So they are all throat letters. We've mentioned that Ith'haar, exposure, is pronouncing the letter without hiding, and also without neither an increase or decrease in ghunnah. So we should pronounce the ghunnah with its natural nasal tone without exaggeration. Let's expose this definition with a bit of more depth. Pronounced clearly means Ith'haar, exposure, should occur when we pronounce the still nun, the nun sakinah, clearly from its proper articulation zone. And let's take an example, an'amta, a nun sakinah here, in the words an'amta followed by ayn from the Fatiha, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. I would like to remind you that the nun has 2 articulation zones, the oral and the nasal. Now in the oral, we actually take the tongue up towards the gum of the upper incisor teeth, and in Ith'haar, in exposure, what we do is we adhere the tongue to the upper gum for a period of 1 time unit, 1 movement. So we measure time in Tajweed by extending the fingers or flexing the fingers, and the time needed for extending 1 finger is considered as 1 time unit, 1 haraka. So look at the tongue here, and أنعمت. That's one time unit. Now let's compare this to the increased time associated with the gunnah. The acceptable time for gunnah should not exceed 2 units, 2 movements. أنعمت with a gunnah, as we have just heard. أنعمت. Now that's okay, but exaggerating it for more than that, like أنعمت, more than 2 units is not acceptable. On the other hand, we've said we shouldn't do إخفاء. Hiding shouldn't be done, which is basically reducing it than a single time unit. So decreasing it further than a single unit is not acceptable. In the case, we'll give an example here, where we adhere the tongue for less than 1 time unit. أنعمت. That's not ظاهر. This is إخفاء. So أنعمت is not good. أنعمت is not good. The acceptable إظهار is something in between, where we pronounce clearly for 1 unit. أنعمت. And now we're going to illustrate what we have learned by giving examples. We said that إظهار has 6 letters. Hamza, Ha, Ain, Ha, Ghain, Kha. So our examples will be based on those. Hamza, Ha, Ain, Ha, Ghain, Kha. For still Noon, for Nun Sakinah, those examples would be either in the same word or in the next word. While for Tanween, it is always in the next word. So we'll start with the first example for the Hamza, An Addu. An Addu, Nun Sakinah, followed by a Hamza, An Addu. And in this case, we pronounce the Noon clearly, without exaggerated gunnah and without إخفاء. An Addu, An Addu. Next example is for the Ha, and we're going to take the example within the same word. Minhum. Minhum, we have a Nun Sakinah with Tanween, followed by a Ha with a Dhamma. And we pronounce the Noon clearly without exaggerating the gunnah and without إخفاء. Minhum. Minhum. Next example, Min Ibadihi. Nun Sakinah followed by Ain with a Kasra, pronounced clearly Min Ibadihi. Next example, Wanhar. In the same word, we have a Nun Sakinah followed by a Ha with a Fatha, and we pronounce it clearly Wanhar. Wanhar. Next, Min Ghayr. Nun Sakinah followed by Ghain, pronouncing the Noon without exaggerating the gunnah and without إخفاء, clearly exposing the Noon. Min Ghayr. Min Ghayr. Next, Min Khayr. Nun Sakinah followed by a Kha, pronounced Min Khayr. Now we're going to take the examples of the Tanween. All of them happens within the next word. First example, Kullun Amana. Kullun, Tanween followed by Hamza. Kullun Amana. We pronounce the Noon clearly without exaggerating gunnah, without إخفاء. Kullun Amana. Kullun Amana. قوم هاد. قوم كسر, Tanween كسر with a Ha, pronounced as قوم هاد. حقيق على. Tanween ضم followed by a Ain, pronounced حقيق على. أمر حكيم. Tanween كسر followed by a Ha, pronounced أمر حكيم. أمر حكيم. عفو غفور. We have Tanween ضم followed by a Ghain, pronounced لعفو غفور. لعفو غفور. Now, عليم خبير. عليم, Tanween ضم followed by a Kha, pronounced clearly exposed without exaggerating gunnah and without إخفاء. عليم خبير. عليم خبير. And now let's practice what we have just learned by extracting إظهار from the shaded selected verses from the Quran Kareem on this page. Remember that the color used for exposure, rule for إظهار, is the usual text color, which is black, since إظهار is the basic rule of Tajweed when no other rule is indicated. Let's start. First one, Nun Sakinah followed by a Ain. Min عبادنا. Min عبادنا. Second example is شيئا إمرا. Tanween followed by Hamza. شيئا إمرا. Min أمري. Nun Sakinah followed by Hamza. Min amri. More. First example, naran hamiya. Tanween followed by ha. Naran hamiya. Another example, aynin aniya. Nunun sakina followed by Hamza. Aynin aniya. Aynin aniya. Another example, jannatin aliya. Tanween followed by ayn. Jannatin aliya. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this lesson in one slide. We've learned in this lesson that Ith'haar, Nun Sakinah and Tanween has 6 throat letters gathered in the starting letters of these words. أخي هاك علما حازه غير خاسري. The Hamza, the Ha, the Ayn, the Ha, the Ghain and the Kha. And the rule was that whenever the Ith'haar letters, one of these letters follows the still Nun, the Nun Sakinah or Tanween, the Nun should be exposed where Ith'haar is applied, meaning the Nun should be pronounced clearly without any hiding or exaggerated Ghunnah. The sign given or the symbol given for Ith'haar in Mus'haf al-Tajweed is nothing special, where we leave the normal black color as the color of Ith'haar letters, yet we leave a small Ha on the Nun, above the Nun, as a reminder of Ith'haar for that Nun. Then we took examples for each one of these letters, such as the Ha and Ayn. For the still Nun, for example, minhum, and for the Ayn, min ibadihi, and for the Tanween, such as haqiqun ala and amrin hakim. And with this summary, we reach the end of our lesson on Ith'haar for Nun Sakinah and Tanween. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that bi'awnihi wa qudratih, that the Quran Learning Management System, برنامج الجامع لحفظة كتاب الله, would help you, inshallah, to improve your tajweed and improve your tilawah and help you in improving your recitation and help you, if you want, in memorizing the Quran and to help you understand the Quran in the proper way. As we reach the end, we ask Al-Mawla Azza wa Jal أن يتقبل منا هذا العمل. We ask Allah Almighty to accept this work from us, and we ask you to make dua for those who participated in making this work come to life and reach you. Hoping you all the best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.